Hello, my name is Sada Torres. I'm a junior in the IB diploma program at Bethesda Chevy Chase High School in Maryland, in the United States. Fun fact, my favorite color is green, and I'm Puerto Rican, so that's why my name is pronounced Sada. So first off, Reshma, I'd like to ask, could you introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, hi, Sarah. It's so great to be having this conversation with you. Um, my name is Reshma. First and foremost, I'm a mom of a 3-year-old and an 8-year-old. I'm the daughter of refugees. My parents came to this country from Uganda in 1973. They were expelled by the dictator Idi Amin. I founded and led an organization called Girls Who Code for the past decade of my life. We've taught over 600,000 girls to code. And I believe that girls will save us, heal us, and make this country and this world a better place. Right now, I am running another organization that I built. I'm a social entrepreneur called Moms First to pass paid leave and affordable childcare.
Oh wow, that sounds amazing. One of my friends, she's very into like technology and STEM stuff, so she like loves coding and such.
Amazing.
And so actually, I watched one of your TED talks about bravery and teaching girls bravery and not perfection. I absolutely like loved it. Even before this, I had watched it a few times and I just hadn't like connected two and two. So I was very excited when I realized that I would get the chance to speak with you. So could you kind of talk about like how you went about with unlearning that you had to be perfect and just becoming more brave and such?
Yeah, I mean, look, I told this story in my TED Talk of something like I saw in so many of my students that quite frankly, saw myself, and it's this idea that like when we're young, we get addicted to perfection, right? Many times like, when we're raised, it's like our parents protect us from physical harm, and that extends into emotional harm. So if you go to gymnastics and you can't do a cartwheel and you come home and you're crying, your parents, well, don't worry about it, honey. Like I'll put you into soccer. So we never learn how to truly fail. And so we start learning to gravitate towards things that we think that we're good at and not necessarily things that we like. And when we get any sense that like we're not doing well at something, we often drop out. Studies show that when women are economics major and they get a B in a single class, they drop out. Whereas men are like, I got a D, like I'm running for president, right? Completely different, ramifications. Women don't apply for jobs unless they meet 100% of the qualifications. So again, if we're waiting to be perfect, to lead, if we're waiting to be perfect to live, we'll never close the leadership gap. And so I think that the antidote to perfectionism is bravery. And so you asked me like when I learned that after a long time. Like I was the daughter of immigrants. Like I wanted to make my parents happy. I wanted to feel like all of their sacrifices, all of their suffering, led into me really acing the American dream. And so I cared about getting every notch on my belt and getting straight A's and about going to the best schools. And so for me, it wasn't until running, I ran for United States Congress. I was
Yeah.
the first brown girl to run, the first Indian woman, South Asian American woman to run for office. And it was like I lost like spectacularly. And it was losing that race and realizing that like failure doesn't break you. I think that in many ways began the process of freeing me from perfectionism.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I remember in your TED talk when you opened, you said that running for Congress, you think it was like the bravest thing you ever done, but some people had said it was the craziest thing you had ever done. So I guess, um, how did you go about even just keep on going for it, despite everyone saying, "Oh, you're crazy, you're insane," and such.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm a little bit like, and I think this is like, so they say this about athletes, right? That if you look at every great athlete, there's something like they didn't get picked in the first round, right? There was some moment in their lives where they knew they were great or that they could do the task and people didn't believe in them. And then that then created like a chip on their shoulder. And I think in many ways, growing up as a daughter of immigrants in a working class neighborhood and having to kind of fight for my space always created this chip on my shoulder. Like I knew, and I think that that election, by not winning that race, knowing that I would be able to be a great elected official, that I would make a difference, right? I think created this kind of chip on my shoulder in many ways that allowed me to kind of push through this sense of feeling like I wasn't ready or prepared or qualified enough. And I talk about this now. I just gave a speech, a commencement speech at Smith College a couple of weeks ago about imposter syndrome. And the point is that like I've been in so many powerful rooms with so many powerful men, and I've realized like me and my girls, like we can run circles around you. Like we got this. And I think it's being in those positions, being in those rooms, being in those experiences that make you realize him, right? Them, what? And I think that has been really freeing for me.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I can kind of relate that a lot. So sometimes in like my classes when hearing about like different grades people got and such, and some guys that like to talk over the teacher or suggest like, oh wait, isn't this correct? Just kind of realizing when you get like test back or when you actually talk to people, being like, he's still in this class. I'm like going against him for stuff. And yeah, I think similar experience with games.
It's like, right, because you think that with all that bravado and all that swag and all that, I know that they know, but really they don't.
Yeah, they just like talking and like restating stuff, but with bigger words and such. And it's not that I'm less smart than them. It's that they're very outspoken about what they think they know.
I mean, if it's still for me, Sarah, like I talk a lot about women and about empowerment, and I'll go in a room and it'll be like mostly women and maybe 5 men. And I'm like, all right, anybody have any questions? And the first hands raised are the dudes, right? Mm-hmm. And even in a topic that has nothing to actually do with them, they have a lot more agency. Because I don't even think it's confidence, because I think we have confidence. I think it's just a sense of agency, permission to basically just raise your hand and be like, maybe you don't know exactly what you want to say, but like, the fact that you realize that you belong in this room.
Yeah, I agree. And then going off of that into Girls Who Code, your organization. So Girls Who Coding obviously helps with teaching people to not be perfect, because like one mistake, like I've tried learning to code like with Python and such, and one tiny mistake and it's like it does not work. And so it's very hard to like with your raising hand, and I know you've spoken on how it's helped learn with teaching girls like, oh, having more agency and not trying to be as perfect because they can ask questions. So I guess with Girls Who Code, are there any other like life skills such as that you believe it helps to teach them that can help them within like building a solid foundation for their life?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think technology is moving so fast, like with AI, ChatGPT, like even during the pandemic, we learned so much more online than we ever thought we would. And so like Barack Obama used to always say, like the humans who are telling the computers what to do will be the last ones left. And it's like the familiarization with technology, with also just being able to fix something. Like when you're learning how to code and the semicolon's in the wrong place, the ability to just try again and try again and try again and try again and not give up, right? I used to like, before I started Girls Who Code, I used to hate like if I bought something and it had like these complicated instructions, I would just like toss it to my boyfriend or my husband or my father, or, you know what I mean? Be like, oh, can you do this for me? Right. Without even really sitting with it. Because I never learned the muscle of sitting with the uncomfortability of figuring something out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I can see that with like sometimes when I would get frustrated when I was younger or something, or just looking at an assignment and had like a lot to do, I'd be like, oh, I don't want to do this. Why can you do this for me? Or ask my dad like, oh, can you explain this to me and help me? Even if I very much like would have gotten it. It just looked so complicated.
Right. It was just so like we haven't learned to sit with the discomfort because, again, I think that wasn't a muscle that we've built. And, in many ways, we don't help boys as much as we help or assist girls. And so I think that part of what Girls Who Code is really doing is letting you, like, teaching you how to sit with the discomfort and to figure it out and to iterate and to realize that, like, it's iteration that makes you great. It's failure. Like, failure is privilege. Like, the older you get, you realize that, oh, the people who get to fail, like Michael Jordan, like Mark Zuckerberg, like Elon Musk, right? People who are building large companies or are incredible athletes, it's because they have the privilege of failure. They could shoot that hoop, you know what I mean, 100 times. Like, and it's when you miss, when you miss a basketball a million times, you realize how to get it in, right? Your percentages go up. Failure basically makes you better. And I think that that's the thing that I tell girls. It's like, you want to fail. The best thing ever happened to me was losing that congressional race, because if I didn't lose that race, I would have never started Girls Decode. I would have never become a social entrepreneur. I would have never written Brave Not Perfect. I would have never, built a career on being an activist, because I would never have known any better.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Because like when I've seen when I don't do as well on assignments or something, I will definitely get more feedback from teachers like, "Oh, this is how you should have done it. This is how you should have done it," or like, "Here's some more stuff to help you with getting this right," and like showing me, "Oh, it's where you went wrong was like around here." But when I do assignments very well, it's just like seeing like checks or a good grade. So I get more feedback, and it helps me with mastering it more, because just trying it and getting it wrong really shows you, "Oh, this isn't how to do it, but this is okay. This is why it makes sense."
And you'll crave that. Like right now, as I'm building Moms First, like I'm in the middle of really kind of figuring out a really hard problem and how I can talk about it and message it in a way that people are like, oh, I get it. I'm bored. And part of my frustration is I'm not getting enough feedback right now, right? Because our team's a little bit smaller, right? And so I want someone with me and to critique me, and you know what I mean, and to tell me, no, don't say that line. That line didn't work, or say it this way, or use this stat, or like tell this story. So when you get used to getting feedback, you're going to want more feedback, because you know that like it's the feedback that makes you better.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. So going into, I guess, into like closer to your work with moms in the workplace and such, what are like some challenges that women in general, not just moms, have like, do you believe that they face like within like the current workplace and such?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been told with corporate feminism that like we have to fix ourselves and not fix the system, right? That we have to just gain more confidence, power pose our way to the top, like, lean in a little harder, just girl boss your way. And you like the corner office is just right there. And so everything we're given is kind of this propaganda about like getting another skill, building another muscle. Like an example of this I talk about, but it's really structural change. So like an example I give about this is the gender pay gap. So women make less than men. Moms make 58 cents on every dollar made by a man. And so I'm sure you've heard this, right? It's like we tell women that they should one by one individually ask for more, slay their negotiation, practice in the mirror. And that instead we should be just telling companies to like pay people fairly, like build an algorithm to like audit your salary, spreadsheets, and like figure out where the disparity is, because you can't actually close the gender gap, which is why the gender gap in the United States has not moved in 2 decades, because we've been applying an individual fix to it. And like to me, that's a scheme, right? To continue to keep women making less. Because there's a better way, which is about structural change to fix the problem overnight. And when you start kind of seeing this scheme versus like these strategies, you see them everywhere. There's like so many examples. And imposter syndrome is another example of that. We make it seem like it's your fault. Like if you feel underqualified, it's because you are. If you feel like you're not prepared, it's because you're not, right? And we make it we put it in words that are almost like medical words, like syndrome. So you think that it's innate. And so, that's really what I'm on a mission on. Because if you look, women have been outpacing men in college in terms of graduates from college. 72% of high school valedictorians are women. The vast majority of those getting their bachelor's degrees are women. The vast majority of those entering the workforce for initial, are women. And then we basically 3 to 5 years in, it's flipped. And you look at who's managing, who's leading, who's running, who's building, it's men. And so something's broken. And oftentimes that shift happens when we decide to become mothers. And when we decide to become mothers, people think all the minute like we lost half of our brain and we don't have any potential, we're distracted, or like, and that's when you start getting paid less, you get less opportunities. You know what I mean? You fall out of the workforce. And so my job, my passion is to fix that, like fix that part of the pipeline, and then to see what happens.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all of that. That makes a lot of sense. Like it would be so much like easier and more efficient if the people like in charge would just decide, okay, we will make this change to help it, and not every single individual woman one by one has to go and say, I deserve to be paid equal. Here is why. It would just,
yeah. Here's my argument. Like you'll never get there.
Yeah, and you shouldn't have to argue to be paid the same that your coworkers are, because if you're doing the same exact work, or even more in some cases, you should not have to come and state your case in front of your
Or make you feel like it's your fault.
yeah, because it's not your fault if it's not your fault for being a woman. It's like you you cannot control that that you're a woman. If you like, you shouldn't have to argue, oh, it is my fault, so here's why I'm here, and this is why I deserve to be paid equal. You deserve to be paid equal because you're doing the same amount of work and because you are a person. Um, and so, and with your, as you're saying about your Moms First, on your website, it kind of outlined your 360 plan on how to enact changes within like three critical arenas, like within to help kind of help mothers more. They were like workplaces, culture, and government, and kind of talk more about how Moms First is working to enact these changes, and if there's any overlap within like these different arenas and such.
So we're like the largest grassroots organization of moms. We're fighting for three things, paid leave, affordable childcare, and pay equity. And we're doing this through three ways, like engaging the private sector, government, and shifting culture. So on the private sector, like my goal is to get companies to start subsidizing childcare. Like childcare, you can't work unless you have childcare. And we talk about childcare like it's a personal problem that you have to solve rather than an economic issue. And so I want childcare to be sitting in the way that we think about healthcare. Like if you go work for an employer, they're going to pay for your healthcare because if you're sick, you'll miss work. If you're a parent and if you don't have childcare, you can't work. It's the same thing. And so we're on this mission to change the narrative in the private sector around that. We've launched a national business coalition on childcare. We have over 40 companies, and we're just shifting the narrative, across companies for both hourly workers and salaried workers on childcare. The second big thing is, we're basically building the largest grassroots movement of moms and bipartisan moms fight for child care paid leave. We have about 750,000, folks and allies that are part of our community, and we're just growing. And so we're taking actions like we launched the first ever bipartisan caucus on childcare in Congress. Within 24 hours, every single one of our members had sent every single congressperson a letter, you know what I mean, saying you need to join this too. And then we're making cultural change. We're working with the Gina Davis Institute to look at the images of Hollywood. Like when you think about a mom, right, it's not aspirational, right? You don't look at you don't turn on the television and you're like, and listen, at Girls Who Code, this used to be with tech. Like being a woman in tech was like super uncool. Now, like you go to, you watch Never Have I Ever, and every cool protagonist, right, is like a STEMmy, right? Like that's like, that's what it means to be cool. And we did that intentionally by movies and shows and books and Super Bowl ads. It's the same thing with moms. When you look at the images of mothers on screen, they're just exhausted, tired, angry, or selfish. And even for me as a mom, either I'm buying Kylie Jenner's makeup or I'm buying, like some anti-aging stuff. Like there's nothing in the middle. You're either one or the other. And I think in our country, it's like we do not aspire to, we do not value. And so there's a direct, I think, connection between not valuing moms culturally to not passing these policies. And that's a change that we want to make. So it's fun. I mean, I'm really excited about the work we're doing right now and the impact that it's going to have on our country.
I definitely agree with like seeing in the media and such about it because like I remember seeing the way like Davey's mom acts in Never Have I Ever versus like kind of that's the only trope, like, oh, the strict mom who won't let you do anything versus like, oh, there's the cool mom who basically like acts like a teenager and is like hip with everything. Yeah.
Right. There's something in the middle. We all have mothers like that are kind of they're in the middle, and that's right. We have these tropes and you don't want to be Davey's mom, right? You don't want to be Davey's mom, and you don't want to be the other mom too, because she's embarrassing.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not aspirational. And I think what's not aspirational is not valued. And now, and again, a classic example of that is folks in tech. It's aspirational to be in tech now, because we changed the caricature from like a nerdy person who has no interest other than to sit in a basement and watch a screen to someone who has more depth.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely, especially with moms who work from home or stay at home moms and such. That's like a really big thing that people are just frown upon, but it is not. It's like it is a full job.
Freedom for women is to move in and out of the workforce as you see fit, to have the choice.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, do you have any questions for me?
What do you think you want to do with your life?
I think in the future with my life, I want to travel a lot to see like different cultures and get to experience them. And then within like the workforce, I believe I want to go into like communications or public relations or something similar to that.
Amazing. And then one last question. What do you want to see from your leaders?
I want to, for my leaders, I would love to see them actually taking accountability for the problems that they can address and they can help to fix, but they choose not to instead of continuing to say, oh, we're doing this to help, we're doing that to help. I'd love to see them actually take action and take a stance on some of these issues and such. And like, especially like, oh, and like in the workplace, like we were saying with management and stuff, them taking the initiative to fix the problems within their company, and it doesn't have to keep being brought to them one by one over and over again to like by the same people that are, and just to respect everyone and actually take initiative and do things instead of giving empty words.
I love it.
Yeah.
Every leader's listening. It's a really, really good point. Like, you shouldn't have to wait for someone to tell you to fix something when you know it's broken.
Mm-hmm.
Fix it yourself.
Yes, exactly. Because it's been proven time and time again that the wage gap is a problem and it has not been fixed. And I think that possibly a big contributor is the people in charge aren't trying enough to fix it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. All right, we're in good hands.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be interviewed by me today. I was very happy and thank you.